Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the MPC Key 37. Came out about a week ago. Mine was lost in the mail, but it's finally here, so we are talking about it. In this video, I'm going to try to answer two questions. I'm going to try. First one is going to be whether or not this would be a good fit for your studio. And the second question is, what problem does the Key 37 solve? So let's get to it. First off, some legalities to get out of the way. Akai did send this over for me to review. No money was exchanged hands, and they have no influence as to what goes in this video. So these are my opinions, my pros and cons, but Akai did send this over to me. And this is also the second MPC that I've gotten. The first one was an MPC 1 Plus from Akai. Now I have personally purchased an MPC 1, Live 2, and Key 61, so I am definitely a fan of the MPC lineup. So no surprise, I am excited about a new MPC. And something in this format is actually very attractive to me because I am almost always pairing my MPC with another keyboard, or in the case of the Key 61, that's all good to go, but it's pretty big. So whenever I have an MPC 1 or a Live 2, I'm pretty much always thinking about what keyboard am I pairing with it. So enter the Key 37. I mean, this actually solves quite a bit of problems for myself because I'm always thinking, what keyboard? And in the past, MPC 1, which by the way, if you look at the size, is it's roughly, the Key 37 is roughly two MPC 1s put together. Now I've got an MPK Mini Plus off to the side as well. So this is definitely something I'd consider for connecting to the MPC to play synths and instruments. And as you can see, it's a little bit bigger depending on how you configure it. You know, you could save a little bit of space like this, but generally speaking, this footprint is maybe a bit larger considering the extra negative space that it takes up on the sides if you wiggle it like this. So the Key 37 does give you a slightly better space economy. Now the 1 Plus is $700, I believe, and the Key 37 is $200 more. You're basically looking at an additional $200 if you want the 3-octave keyboard, pitch bend, mod wheel, and the 3 additional ports in the back for foot switch, expression pedal, and that type of stuff. But basically, if you look at the MPC 1, you can see that they just took pieces and spread it across. So this section right here looks like this. The screen, along with the cue links right here, and obviously the pads, and then the A, B, C, D, they move this up on the top right here, which is actually pretty convenient. Side buttons right here, side buttons right there, and obviously the addition of pitch bend, mod wheel, octave, and all that. So in terms of the button configuration, it's not a one-to-one match with the MPC 1. They definitely move things around. Like one of the biggest ones is track mute. I'm always used to going over here for track mute, and they put it over here. I also appreciate the fact that the shift button's right here, so anytime I'm using the screen going right here, I can easily just jump over here for the shift button. For whatever reason on the MPC 1, the shift button being off to the left right here next to the pads just always threw my brain off for a bit. I don't know why, it just is. For the short amount of time that I've had the Key 37 in the studio and using it just a little bit, initially I was like, oh, where's that shift button? And then I got used to this and I was like, this is better. And then also you got these buttons right here. They're a little bit different. One thing that's not on here anymore is a browse shortcut. So what you do is you hold menu and you go to the browser like that. So you can do that. Obviously, if you go to the menu, you can click on browser or hold the menu button to get the shortcuts. So things like that, little changes right there. But honestly, not much obviously is different with the Key 37. It's essentially an MPC. It's essentially an MPC 1 Plus with these additional things added to it. And obviously slightly different things in the software. For instance, there's no Ableton control, which I'm not 100% sure why that is with both the Key 61 and the 37 now. But to question number one, is this a good fit for your studio? Now, obviously I'm not in your studio, so I can't answer that directly, but I can give you some guidance from my perspective. I'm always using the MPC with additional instruments, synthesizers specifically. So if you're like me and you have a bunch of hardware synthesizers that you want to pair up with a powerful sequencer, the MPC is honestly one of the best choices out there. There's a lot of choices for sure, but for me personally, and over the past few years of using the MPC platform, I've really grown to appreciate what I can get out of the environment, the ecosystem. And I know the term DAWless gets thrown around a lot, and yes, I know this is technically a DAW in a box, but for the DAWless crowd, it does check a lot of boxes off for getting a whole ecosystem together to do jams that are specifically hardware-based jams. I have a Typhon Dreadbox off to the side right here as just an example, but essentially I have this plugged in via MIDI and then the outputs going directly into the inputs on the Key 37. Now that's obviously a very simple setup. Normally what I'm doing is sending multiple instruments out to a separate mixer or digital mixer or inside the DAW for digital mixing that way. And then the MPC is acting as the main MIDI brain, but it's also a fantastic sampler. So if you were to sample any of your instruments, you know, guitar, voice, or YouTube videos or whatever you want, it is a fantastic platform to chop and sample stuff. Not that it's perfect. All platforms have issues, and the MPC is no exception. And if you're new to the platform, the learning curve can be a bit strange. For some people it's difficult, other people it's easy, but it really just depends on where your background is. In fact, I did a whole video on is the MPC a difficult platform to learn. I'll link it so you can check it out if you're curious about that. But if you're looking for some sort of hardware standalone unit to control a bunch of stuff in your studio, this is honestly one of the best solutions. And now that you can get one with a keyboard attached that also has aftertouch, which is good. And then you got your pitch bend, mod wheel type of stuff. So it's like a relatively concise footprint in one space. It's a great option, honestly. In comparison to the Key 61, that definitely has more features, and not just a bigger keyboard, obviously, and a bigger footprint, but it's got additional 2 outputs. It's got preamps for microphones, which is actually something that would have been nice for this, because if you do want to just sample an acoustic guitar or voice really fast, you still have to hook something else up to it to be able to get a preamp. The Key 37 is also missing the touch strip, which is on the Key 61. And that's unfortunate because that's actually a pretty cool feature to be able to get hands-on and do some interesting like effects and changes to your sound. So unfortunate that they weren't able to include that into this box. Although looking at the space economy and like the way things are already laid out, I think it would have been a bit crammed if they put the touch strip in here, because this all would have had to get more tighter, and it might have looked a little claustrophobic. But just in the past few days of using this guy, I've really been enjoying it. I loaded up everything that is on my account. This does not come with a bunch of instruments, by the way, like the Key 61. Key 61, you get all those like Fabric XL and OPX4. You get a pretty robust library of plugins added to the platform with the Key 61. That is not in the Key 37. You kind of have to pick and choose what you want. So could be a consideration for you if you were thinking, oh, I want like the studio strings and the Fabric XL and whatever additional stuff that might be in there. You're not getting that with the Key 37. Again, it's like the MPC One Plus. So whatever comes with the MPC One Plus is basically what you're getting in terms of software in there, I believe. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that. Over the past few years, Akai has been growing the ecosystem and slowly adding new synthesizer plugins. If you edit it as well, you can see some really nice options. Obviously, this is a Mini Moog, a Model D type of inspiration. They also added the Jura, which is a Juno 60 inspired instrument. Both of these plugins have essentially been go-to bread and butter synths. Let's record something. Let's get another track. New plugin. Sounds, we'll go mini D. Go bass, get the mini thump. Just showing how fast ideas can be made right there. But back to the discussion of this guy. Does this make sense for your studio? Again, it comes down to, do you need a standalone hub that's going to control a bunch of your gear? If you're in the market for something like that, I would definitely consider the MPC. It is a great platform so long as you get past the hurdle of knowing how the system works. All DAWs and all gear have learning curves, so you are going to have to get past the fact that you will have to learn a new platform if you're adopting this into your studio. It took me a little bit of time to get up to speed with it, but what I did was I just took it in pieces of what I actually wanted to use, and I didn't think of it as I have to know the entire system before I can get any use out of it. So that was pretty beneficial for me. You know, like if you want to learn how to sample first, like get into sampling, chopping, and just start with that. For me, I wanted to learn how to control external instruments right away, so that's what I focused on first. So what if you are already a MPC user, you've been using the MPC for a long time, does the Key 37 make sense to you? Chances are no. And I say that because I know a lot of people like to just use an MPC by itself and maybe even use notes mode, which if you go in here, you can configure these pads to be like notes or chords and stuff like that and control what key you're in and all that. I know a lot of people use that pretty heavily on both like the MPC X and the Live and the MPC One. I've personally used it before. Since I tend to use keys more often, anything that's tonal or, you know, chords, bass, leads, all that stuff, I'm gonna prefer a keyboard. Almost always. Drums, I'm always using the pads. If I chop up some sort of sample, if I happen to sample something from a vinyl, I'm definitely gonna chop that and use the pads to trigger those sounds. So for me, it's more like maybe a 80% on the keys, 20% on the pads type of ratio for me. I know a lot of people are not like that. Maybe they're just plucking around a little bit on the keys, finding something, but it's like 90% of the time they're on the pads. If that's the case, the Key 37 doesn't really make sense, right? You might as well have something like an MPK Mini off to the side to handle those duties. There's also technically nothing different about this MPC than other MPCs because it's the same operating system, which is actually a pro and a con, really. A pro in that if you've used one MPC that's modern, you pretty much know how to use all the other MPCs. The con, on the other hand, is nothing really different. You know, if you're thinking like, ooh, what type of special sauce is inside the Key 37 that's gonna give me some sort of production leg up, it's not there. It's a form factor change. And for me personally, because I like to play keys, I think it's awesome. But I know a lot of people are gonna be like, I'd rather have an MPC One. So, or where's a battery or something like that. And yeah, in comparison to things like a Live 2, you know, there's things that maybe could have been in here that's definitely missing. For instance, an SSD enclosure. All you can do is put an SD card for your samples and saving sounds and all that. Would have been nice to have an SSD port, for sure. But again, that probably would have added more to the cost. Also, a battery would have been amazing for this because this is technically perfect size to put on your lap and play keys, and it has a nice weight distribution. And I think it's about 15 pounds, roughly. It definitely would be nice as like a living room on your coffee table type of synth, but you have to have power. So you are stuck with having to plug it in somewhere. Unless you get some sort of battery power solution, but then you're dealing with an external battery, you know, so there's things to consider right there. It would have been nice to have an internal battery like the Live 2, but it doesn't. And again, if they put an internal battery in there, the cost would have gone up. Would you pay an extra, I don't know, 200 bucks to have a battery in there? Like, let's say this was $1,100. Would you then be okay with like an SSD port and a battery? I don't know. Unfortunately, nothing's perfect. There is trade-offs. And I do understand Akai has to make some sort of like profit, you know, sweet spot with how much it costs and what they can sell it for and all that. They are a business after all, right? Also, I haven't talked about the color. It's red, you know, metal plastic red. It looks okay, but at the same time, I don't hate it or anything. I definitely got used to the MPC One Plus as time has passed. And yeah, it seems to be like a slightly different color actually. Maybe the formula for the plastic is a little bit different. I mean, it is what it is. If you don't like the color, don't buy it. I'm sure there's like aftermarket third-party things that you could do to completely replace the case or cover it, but it's a bit of a pain in the ass to have to do that. Maybe they'll sell like black versions, which I prefer the black version. Or maybe they have the retro one. I know the retro one's very popular for like the Live 2. I see a lot of people online always talking about, where's the retro? It's always sold out. Yeah, the color is what it is. It's red. It tends to stick out a bit in your studio. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. In conclusion, hopefully I have answered some of your questions. If you have any more questions, drop them below. I will try my best to answer. I can't say I can answer everything, but like I said, I'll try my best. For me personally, the Key 37 is very interesting, and I will most likely reach for this guy more often than the MPC One Plus when I'm doing stuff. If you want to see more setups and jams with this, I will definitely be posting more stuff with like lots of different modules and gear around it. And also something that I didn't talk about is I think this could be the perfect modular centerpiece because it does have the CV outs. So you can actually control quite a bit of modular gear directly from this. I'll be doing some experiments with that, so subscribe if you're curious about more content with the MPC Key 37. And obviously I do a lot of MPC content in general, so if you're curious about that, you can check out the back catalog. Thanks again to Akai for sending this over. I do appreciate that, and thank you very much for making it to the end right here. If you are planning on picking up a Key 37, then if you use the links below, they are affiliate links, and we get a small cut, which helps out the channel. So if you want to help with the channel and you're planning on picking up an MPC One or a Key 37, and you use our links, then it helps. So thank you very much for that. But that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time for another one. Peace.